There's this story from years ago about a man named Hugo. He stepped in when he saw someone being attacked, tried to do the right thing. Tragically, he was stabbed and ended up lying on a sidewalk bleeding for over an hour and 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. And the really disturbing part, more than 25 people apparently walked right past him. Some just stared. Some apparently even took pictures. One person rolled him over, then just walked away. He died there.
That's incredibly hard to hear. It really makes you think.
It does. It kind of highlights this modern tendency maybe to watch things happen, maybe pull out our phones, but not actually do anything. Like we assume someone else will step up.
Right, that diffusion of responsibility.
Exactly. What about when we do feel that strong urge to intervene? When we feel like we have to do something, but maybe we try our own way, not necessarily following a deeper path or timing. So today, that's where we're diving into. This whole dilemma of how we act when we see wrong. It's our idea of the right way, always the actually right way.
That's a great question.
We'll be looking at the early life of Moses from Exodus and drawing some maybe unexpected connections. We want to unpack some insights about timing, responsibility, and maybe a bigger picture. It really is incredibly difficult, isn't it? Knowing exactly when or how to respond. It's a huge challenge not to just, take the easy way out when you see something that feels deeply wrong.
It absolutely is. And what's compelling when you look at the source material is how central justice is. It's a really dominant theme in the Hebrew prophets.
Right.
You see it so clearly in places like Isaiah, Amos, Micah, Zechariah. There's this strong divine call to act against injustice.
Okay.
But that immediately raises a really critical question, doesn't it? How do you balance that clear command to seek justice with, figuring out the right way and the right time to actually do it?
Yeah, how does that balance work out? Especially when, your intentions are good.
Yeah.
So our deep dive today really focuses on Moses' early life. His first attempts at, doing the right thing offer some really profound lessons here. Genesis ends with Joseph, this amazing leader whose weaknesses God sort of transformed to save his family. And then Exodus picks up with Moses, another guy destined for leadership, but who also had this intense period of preparation, of transformation, before he could really fulfill that huge mission for Israel.
And the setup for Moses is dramatic. You have Pharaoh, who's terrified of the growing Israelite population.
Right.
So he issues this absolutely brutal command: throw every newborn Israelite boy into the Nile River, just trying to wipe out a whole generation.
Horrifying.
It is. And Moses' parents, they're from the tribe of Levi. They already have Aaron and Miriam, older kids. But when Moses is born, his mother, Jochebed, she makes this little basket, seals it up, and puts her 3-month-old baby boy in the very river that was supposed to kill him.
Wow.
It's just, the irony there is incredible, isn't it? God turning this agent of death, the Nile, into the very thing that saves Moses' life.
That's just an amazing picture of survival. Again, it's like impossible odds. And Miriam, his sister, she plays such a key role too. The text calls her a maiden, Alma, a young woman. And she's hiding there watching from the reeds. Just being there was probably risky, right? With Pharaoh's laws.
Oh, absolutely. Huge risk.
But when Pharaoh's daughter finds the basket, Miriam, she doesn't hesitate. She steps up, speaks to the princess, and, cleverly arranges for her own mother to nurse the baby. She reunites them. What does that tell us about maybe the spirit of that family?
It says so much, doesn't it? About their faith, their courage, their resourcefulness.
Yeah.
And if you think about the bigger picture, it really shows God actively working right from the start, orchestrating Moses' survival. You have to imagine Moses hearing this story growing up.
Oh, for sure.
It would have left this deep impression on him, wouldn't it? That his life wasn't just ordinary, that God had some kind of special purpose for him, saving him like that.
Okay, so Moses grows up in the palace. He's, for all intents and purposes, Egyptian royalty, Pharaoh's adopted grandson. But he knows deep down he's an Israelite. He's living with this dual identity.
Right.
Then, when he's about 40, according to the book of Acts, he feels like it's time.
Yeah.
His time. He sees an Egyptian mistreating an Israelite slave, and this powerful urge to step in just takes over. And the text says he looked this way and that way, like he was checking if anyone was watching.
Seems like it. Trying to ensure secrecy.
Before he strikes, the Egyptian kills him and then hides the body in the sand.
Yeah, hoping it would just go away, believing perhaps that this decisive, maybe even violent action was what was needed to start protecting his people.
But that hope he had,
Yeah.
that his fellow Israelites would see him as their champion, their deliverer.
Right.
Well, it completely falls apart the very next day.
Right. The confrontation.
Exactly. He sees two Israelites fighting, tries to break it up, and one of them just turns on him. Says, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Are you going to kill me like you killed that Egyptian?"
Ooh, that must have hit hard.
Yeah, total rejection. And Moses realizes instantly, okay, this isn't secret anymore. My own people won't back me, and this news is definitely getting back to Pharaoh.
The calculation changes completely.
Right. So he flees, runs off to Midian. What looked like his big moment to become Israel's savior just spectacularly backfired. He's actually further away from helping his people than before. We've all had those moments, maybe smaller scale, where we think, I know how to fix this, and then, oops.
Definitely. And Moses' fix-it moment had incredibly high stakes.
So what do we make of this?
Well, it really forces us to ask some tough questions, doesn't it? Like, was killing the Egyptian part of God's plan? Was running away a failure or something else?
Right.
From just a human point of view, you can see Moses acting on this really strong impulse, believing in his own ability, his position maybe, to bring about justice now.
Makes sense.
But this story really highlights that crucial difference, doesn't it? Between acting with good intentions, even noble intentions, and acting according to, let's say, God's specific timing and method.
Okay.
Moses acted impulsively, based on what he saw, what he felt, his own strength. But a divinely guided path that often seems to involve more patience, maybe more discernment, waiting for a clearer signal, not just reacting.
So him fleeing wasn't just failure.
Well, God didn't abandon him, that seems clear. This time in Midian. It wasn't just punishment, it became this really transformative period for him. His initial failure, which came from maybe relying too much on himself, actually became the thing that shaped him. It's kind of like how sometimes in our own lives, right?
Right.
A setback, maybe caused by rushing in, can ironically force us to slow down, learn new skills, develop patience, rely on something deeper.
That's really interesting. So this whole journey of Moses, it reveals this fundamental human struggle, doesn't it? The tension between, like, I can handle this myself versus waiting for the right moment, trusting a bigger plan.
Exactly. And it's such a core struggle that we even see echoes of it, surprisingly perhaps, in the life of Jesus.
Ah, okay. How so?
Well, think about it. Both Moses and Jesus faced these moments where it was incredibly tempting to just use their own abilities or find a shortcut around a really difficult mission.
Right.
Remember Jesus in the wilderness. Matthew tells us the devil tempted him to turn stones into bread.
Yeah, he was hungry after fasting.
Exactly. It was a logical, immediate solution using his power. A way to bypass the hardship, maybe focus on the bigger mission without the immediate suffering. Kind of like Moses using his strength to solve the immediate injustice he saw. It looked like the sensible thing to do.
Okay, I see the parallel.
And then there's that other temptation, Satan offering him all the kingdoms of the world if he'd just bow down.
Right, avoid the cross, avoid all the suffering, get straight to the ruling the world part.
Precisely. Jesus knew what was coming, the immense pain. And here's this offer of an easier route to achieve essentially world leadership and worship. It was a powerful, a legitimate temptation, you could say. Very similar to Moses' desire to just lead his people out now, skip the waiting.
Wow, yeah.
And then, of course, the ultimate moment is in Gethsemane, isn't it? Where Jesus shows his complete submission to the Father's will. He prays, "Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." It shows that deep human struggle, but ultimately the choice to align with a larger purpose, even when another way seems possible, maybe even easier. Jesus seemed to have learned the lesson that Moses at this earlier stage still needed to grasp.
Which is?
That when you have this profound sense of mission, this calling, you can't just rely on your own strength or your own timing. You have to wait for that deeper guidance to act, to lead.
So God kind of repurposed Moses' mistake.
It seems that way. It's a powerful idea, isn't it? That even a wrong turn, an impulsive act like Moses killing the Egyptian and fleeing, wasn't the end of the story. God, in this narrative, used it. That flight wasn't just an escape. It became an unexpected detour into what Ellen White calls a school of adversity in Midian.
Away from the palace.
Exactly, away from the comfort, the status, this time of maybe humbling, of hardship. It forged the qualities he actually needed for the real mission later on, qualities he likely wouldn't have developed back in court.
It's pretty remarkable when you think about it, how Moses, despite that huge setback, became the leader he did. He was clearly, an exceptional person from the start, shaped so much by his mother, Jochebed. Ellen White talks about her influence.
A huge influence, yeah.
And Moses himself had these incredible qualities. Brilliant mind, writer, leader, philosopher, loved truth, steadfast, courteous, diligent, all these things. He had this deep compassion for his people, this real drive to help them.
Absolutely. The raw materials were there.
Yeah. But even with all that talent, all that passion, his journey shows that, even the best of us have to learn that lesson about timing, about surrender to a bigger plan. His own strength, his own passion, as valuable as they weren't enough by themselves.
And that really brings it back to us, doesn't it? To our own lives. It makes you ask, and this is maybe for you listening, how does it feel when you try hard to do the right thing, what you think is the right thing, and it just falls apart?
Yeah.
Maybe it even makes you question why you did it in the first place. And maybe even harder, how can you tell? How do you know if you're acting out of impulse, maybe ego, versus acting in sync with something deeper, a true sense of purpose?
Those are big questions.
They are. But the stories of Moses and Jesus, too, they really encourage that kind of critical thinking about our own motives, our own methods when we face injustice or feel that call to act. And ultimately, maybe the encouraging part is that these stories suggest even our mistakes, our wrong turns, can somehow be woven into a larger purpose, that good can still come from it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into trying your own way, we've really explored that tension, haven't we, between our gut reaction, our desire to fix injustice now, and the critical importance of discerning not just what's right, but the right time and the right way.
Exactly. And we've seen how maybe a larger purpose, maybe a divine plan, can actually work through our mistakes, even use them as part of the preparation we didn't know we needed.
Right.
True leadership, fulfilling a really significant calling, it seems it often requires that period of waiting, of patience, of trusting in a plan that's maybe bigger than we can see at the moment.
So for you listening today, maybe the thought to leave you with is this. In your own life, when you feel that pull, how do you discern? How do you know when it's time to wait, to be patient, and when it's truly time to step forward and act?